Welcome back to Betoota Talks. My name is Clancy Overall. I'm joined by Wendell Hussey. And today we're going to talk about modern history, modern Australian history. I'd like to say modern Queensland history, although this is something that seems to affect the entire country for a brief period of time in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And it was something that kind of has ingrained itself in the psyche of Australia. And it's referenced quite often to this day in the media, and that is the institution of Christopher Scase. Thank you for joining us, Mark Humphries. You've just done a podcast on this.
Yes, I have. And I mean, what are your memories of Skase? Did you know much about him growing up?
I remember, a lot of people can remember an era, and it's a shame that this era is kind of over in terms of an aesthetic, but just that flashness. Everyone remembers the flashness,
Yep.
and all Queenslanders still kind of talk about the Gold Coast like that, the white shoe brigade, the white suits. It's almost – it kind of is similar to that kind of southern charm in America, like the Carolinas.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, the Myrtle Beach, where you can get away with this stuff. There's nothing wrong with a bit of flair.
Yeah.
And you still get taken very seriously.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, you can be ostentatious and in a way that seems so clearly dodgy.
Yes.
And yet people go, this guy's the real deal.
Yeah, we have a few obviously high-flying business people now in Australia who have, on the rich list for the global kind of global billionaires and all that sort of stuff. But they're pretty clean cut. They're cool tech guys who most people don't really
They wear
know.
T-shirts.
Yeah, they wear T-shirts. They have ponytails.
Beards.
They invest in like
talking about one person.
sports teams, but like international sports teams. Not something they're not interested in the Aussie ones, like the former kind of billionaire, the flashy billionaire investors were. I don't know what their legacy would be. I find it interesting listening to your podcast, Mark, some of the legacy stuff about Skase. I actually didn't realize. For all the dodgy things he did have some kind of some really interesting influences on things like Channel 7 and AFL, the Olympics, the way that was all covered, what it did to that station, and obviously places like Gold Coast and Port Douglas as well, right? It wasn't all bad with Skase.
No, that's it. I think you'll find a lot of people who will say, people who weren't personally affected by his actions.
Who didn't lose huge amounts of money.
Exactly. Yeah, if you've been to Port Douglas, you go, that's quite nice.
Yes.
So yeah, if you had an arm's length from it, it's all fine. Yeah, and look, Channel 7 thing, as I say in the podcast, it was during his reign that Home and Away was introduced. So, you can either thank him or blame him for that.
I want to ask, have you delved into his personal background? Skase in itself was a name that caught everyone's eye, and it wasn't a name we'd heard before. Did he have that similar thing to a lot of the cowboys of Queensland of that era, where they had kind of this second-gen European kind of ambition?
Well, yes, the ambition. He had this great drive and was very sort of methodical about how he went about achieving his dreams. But he was an outsider, and it was. It's the thing I'm fascinated with is about his personality. Yeah. And what I mean by that is early on it seems that people were not particularly impressed by him. But then over time, there seems to be this weird sort of thing about, like, Darren Hinch talks about how you'd be at a dinner with him and he wouldn't say 10 words in, half an hour. And that weirdly, that gives you some sort of mystique or something. So whereas one person might find you quite dull, another might go, wow, he's enigmatic, isn't he? So I'm kind of curious about that, because he's not a big personality the way that, you almost imagine him to be.
He just looks like one.
He just looks like one, exactly.
So what was the story? I know his father was a radio disc jockey.
Yes, exactly.
So he kind of effectively, this is not to say he didn't have like a nice middle-class upbringing, but he effectively didn't come from that world.
No, exactly right. And just sort of went into sort of finance journalism and wanted to kind of get a sort of a apprenticeship in the sort of world and circles that he wanted to run in. And then it sounds like certainly a big part of what ended up helping him was also he met the right woman. Yeah. Pixie Skase, who already had 4 daughters when they met, and she became sort of together. They became this sort of power couple.
Yeah. So she had those Turak stripes. Is that what? Because that's what I've always thought about Skase, and I'll get to I want to talk to you about the Skase truthers.
Right.
There's people
was he
out
still
there.
alive? Is he?
Well, no, there's people out there. Not so much that. There's people out there that do think he was hard done by because he wasn't from that world. If he had one of those if he had the right last name, if he was from good Liberal Party stock from Victoria,
that's interesting.
They mightn't have made an example out of him. Is the thinking.
I haven't received their letters yet, but I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Do the truthers have any particular examples of Melburnians who've gotten away with something like that or close to?
I mean, there are examples. There's certainly examples in Sydney and Melbourne and Perth as well. Like the wayward sons that just fuck it up and then everyone kind of forgets about it because they're from an important family.
Yeah.
That said, they probably didn't wear white suits.
Yeah. Yeah, they tried to lay a little bit low when they were in trouble, whereas Skase just kind of kept doubling down, right?
Well, I mean, that's the extraordinary thing is, I would love to be able to kind of take a walk around his brain just to understand the mentality, especially when things, what ultimately sort of brought it all down, which is this attempt to purchase MGM United Artists for $2 billion.
Yeah.
He must have known he didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know what he thought was going to happen.
Yeah. That
you just make this bid and then the money magically appears.
Yeah.
And the poor bastards back at Quintex having to go, right, we're buying MGM United with what?
I wanted to know, did you get any sense in the lead up to this, like Skase is flying, owns Channel 7s, Quintex, everything's going amazing, puts in a bid of $1.2 billion, which is a lot back then. It's a lot now, but it's even more back then. Puts in a bid for $1.2 billion for MGM, and then Murdoch comes along with $400 million more.
Yes.
And then Skase obviously freaks out and chucks another $400 million and gets it up to $2 billion.
Yes.
Was the Murdoch bid legit, do you reckon? Or was he deliberately trying to fuck Skase?
That's a great question because Murdoch obviously did not end up owning MGM United Artists. So that's a fantastic question. I don't know. I think it's more fun to think that that's
what's
happened.
I wonder if it was just he knew his ego.
Yeah.
And he knew he would come back. Because then obviously Skase doesn't pay the $50 million deposit, loses the rights to MGM, it all moves on. But Murdoch doesn't come in and
he doesn't
bid
come
again.
In. No, exactly. Which actually absolutely goes with your theory, which I think is a great theory. I think that'd be very funny.
So
calculating.
Let's go back to the start. Where did he first kind of make a name for himself in business? By the way, for our listeners who were born after the year 2000, Christopher Scase was this mesmerising figure in Australian business and Australian public life who was the classic textbook Icarus. He made all the headlines. He was at all the right parties. He held all the right parties, almost Gatsby-esque until he went too far. And that's what we were just talking about with the MGM grand sale and the bidding war with Murdoch. I want to ask you, Mark, when did Skase first make a name for himself? And when do you think he first kind of emerged as someone who's a bit of a cowboy?
Gosh, that's a really great question. All right, so I mean, the first significant purchase was this jewelry store, Hardy Brothers Jewelry Store. And so early on, it was sort of, I guess you'd say, flipping businesses and sort of taking things that were not necessarily doing well. And he clearly was good at what he did for a while. And then, but in terms of making a name for himself, I think it comes down to, again, partly Pixie and the aesthetic and the parties, the lavish lifestyle. I think that sort of stuff, when it would come to these resorts that he built, Mirage, Port Douglas, Gold Coast, fly in the cast of MASH. Just like they understood branding. I think that was a big part of it as well. They understood personal branding and how to get into the papers and what have you. So that's in terms of the exact moment at which he sort of broke through. I can't say definitively, but yes, certainly things like that helped. I mean, it made me laugh when they would show me the lists of names of people that would come to these things. You know who George Hamilton is? George Hamilton is an American actor, extremely tanned, like more orange than Trump. And he's in The Godfather Part 3 because Robert Duvall wouldn't do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's sort of
George Hamilton.
Yeah, he's sort of the consigliere in Godfather Part 3. Anyway, he was one of those names that came out. And then it's like, it's Hot Lips from MASH. Yeah. And then like Farnham, John Farnham would go and sing A Touch of Paradise, which apparently meant a lot to Skase.
Yeah.
So I think that was certainly a big part of it.
Was a bit of this kind of imported? Like, was there people were looking at Miami and what was happening over there?
And it is very much like a Miami Vice.
Yeah.
I think Don Johnson sort of aesthetic.
Yeah.
That's something we don't cover in terms of his influences, but that may absolutely be it. That does match.
And was cocaine around? That's another question. Some of these decisions
in my research, drugs. I don't think drugs came up at all. Yeah. If it did, he certainly kept it under wraps. But
it would have been around, I guess, in these parties. It would have been around the people, right? Because it was the 80s.
Yeah.
And everyone was flying and it was greed is good and excess and flashiness.
Totally.
We won't go into the chase for Skase because that's a great story you've documented in your podcast there. And I just love how it's Mr. Worldwide. I love the aspects of I just love someone who can truly go on the run in any era.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the solutions to bringing him home as well are incredible. Illegal and incredible.
Yeah. I mean, so we'll let the listeners go and listen to that themselves on Skase, The Fall of a Tycoon, which is out now, brought to you and meticulously researched by today's guest, Mark Humphries.
Well, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. So I must give credit to the ABC Rewind team, and then I get to come in and put my spin on it. And
they've done a few rippers too. The ABC Rewind. I was listening to their story about the waterfront.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right. So very keen for other stories from yesteryear and any other dodgy behaviour.
Did you get to make a trip up to Port Douglas?
No, I would have the trip I wish I could have made was the one to interview Warwick Capper. That's the one that I wish I did.
I meant to ask. So that was you guys spoke to him, or someone spoke to him, or is that archival?
So someone in the team specifically. Because when I came on, I said, "Oh, who are you speaking to?" And they said, "Darren Hinch and Jennifer Kite and Warwick Capper." And I went, "Hang on, have you already spoken to Capper?" And they said, "Yes." And I was like, "Okay, how long did you speak to him for?" They said 35 minutes. I said, "How much of it is usable?" They said, "About 10 seconds." I will off-air play you some of that.
He is a movie character.
He plugged his new rosé or whatever he's doing.
Because at the risk of telling too many stories from the podcast, but just like when Skase pays him $1.9 million to go and play for the Brisbane Bears and gives him a men's clothing store as well. It's just that kind of when you talk about what are the kind of clues or things that things were. To me, that's just like. Oh, if you happen to give someone and he was getting daily massages as well. It was another part of it. It all felt
staying in the hotel for a year and a half or something like that. Yeah, an incredible story as well about Hinch when he rang up Hinch and he wanted the Human headline to come on board, and Hinch just says, "Hey, double your price," and comes back and sorts it out. No worries at all. I wanted to know
all the characters in this are exactly who you want to be interviewing. Like Hinch's line about, "I turned to my wife, Jackie Weaver." Who's married to for a second time at that point.
Very good. The one other thing I wanted to ask you about was, it seems from afar, right? Like he went into financial journalism but had no interest in being a journalism. He'd had no desire to be part of the Fourth Estate at any point in time, hold truth to power or any of that. The Pixie relationship obviously opened a huge amount of doors for him and gave him status. Everything was this like kind of grand plan. It's a twofold question. Where do you think he was like this young guy who got inspiration and just everything was going towards a plan? And what was the actual end goal?
Oh, that's fantastic. I think yes, there was always a plan, but what the end goal is, that's a fascinating question. Because I think what I find interesting about Skase is in terms of I was just being interviewed about media moguls on another podcast, and it was like, but this Skase is more interesting to me because it's not just media, it's not just Channel 7, it's a footy club, it's resorts, and I think so. Really, what was the limit? He didn't seem to have. I did wonder whether perhaps there might be like political aspirations or something. It doesn't seem to have been the case, but. I mean, I guess the worldwide element is certainly, obviously in terms of where he was going towards with that MGM thing. So clearly had aspirations beyond our shores. I think a mirage in Hawaii as well. So there was, even when he was living in Spain, he was still trying to set up, resorts in other parts of the world. So I guess to be a global figure was the ultimate goal.
It's almost, and I hate saying this, it's almost very Trumpian.
Yeah.
This idea of just putting your name on something anywhere in the world, and that accrues kind of profile and power.
The other thing I think that's funny as well is just the level to which the names you're talking about, like names, the names of things are just red flags. Just it's called Mirage. It's just like we've got it. We play it in the podcast. But the song for the ads for the Mirage, the song is called "Too Good to Be True." And it's just like he's just hiding in plain sight.
Yeah,
he's just telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to talk a little bit about that era, you know what I mean, in terms of how people were just out and about and the legacies they've left. Like, just thinking now, talking about everything that was Skase. The Brisbane Bears, he realises that AFL needs to go nationwide. He kind of moved on that. He brought the Bears to Brisbane. He did all that. And you just look this year, the Brisbane Lions have won 2 AFL grand finals in a row. His DNA is in this kind of back-to-back premiership.
Saying, really.
No, I'm just saying
it's a complicated figure.
It is an interesting thing. I look at Sydney Second Airport, you know, the disaster and the ongoing kind of turmoil that it has taken to get that thing built. It's getting built. It's going to be active soon. But we all know that patch of land was bought by organised crime figures, and like that's going to be the legacy. We're going to not talk about it, but so much in this country is just kind of been done by someone.
Sure, that's it. Yeah, and doesn't the end justify the means?
Yeah, and that's what Queensland politics at that time taught us, and that's why Skase went up there. It was because it was kind of asked forgiveness later.
Exactly right, because he had started in Victoria, and they started sniffing around, and he was like, I'm getting out of here. Yeah. And then, so Joe Bjelke-Petersen is the premier of Queensland. This feels more promising.
Yeah,
yeah.
Just you don't ask permission at all, and look, no other government would have allowed a city the size of the Gold Coast to be built on sand.
Obviously, there's a lot of sensitivity still for people with this. Like, there are still plenty of people around. Did you run into much of that in the background, or were people happy to just kind of share their stories?
In terms of did we run into people
who are like, this guy's fucked, not happy to talk about it, still just so bitter and angry.
Or still fucked by it.
Weirdly, it was more his family were the ones who really didn't want to talk. But no, we don't really have anyone on who is there talking about sort of their personal anger. I'm getting more sort of almost I'm inclined to pitch that we do a follow-up episode, because now I'm getting a lot of stories from people listening to the exactly. Yeah. And just weird, the very individual stories. Yeah. Something to do with the lights at Carrara Stadium that were never paid for, or there's a lot of that sort of stuff. So no, we don't go into the personal stories so much, though inevitably, yes, there were people who were ruined by him, and there would still be so much resentment. But it's kind of interesting to come at it now, 30 odd years later, when the story has sort of faded into the background, and introduce it to
Did anyone get away with any money in this whole thing? Did anyone kind of, these people often have people around them that did the money stick for anyone?
That's interesting. Yeah. Not to my knowledge. I mean,
the family might have.
So Skase, I mean, they kept all the artwork and the furniture and the antiques and all that sort of stuff. But Skase was interviewed by John Laws, who went over to Mallorca. and Skase
don't threaten John Laws with a week in Mallorca.
and Skase was very much like, oh, well, this, I didn't buy this painting. That's, this belongs to the girls, or this one belongs to this one was a gift. So there was an answer for everything. Yeah. There may well be. It's a great question, but to my knowledge, no. To my understanding is that the money really was well and truly spent, and I think that's certainly indicative by the fact that when Pixie came back to Australia later in her life, she did live in a just a rented place.
Was it Amanda Vanstone kind of made a name for herself?
Amazing.
It's an interesting trip down memory lane, because we now look at the state of the Liberal Party where the talent's very thin. And you kind of look, I was like, that's right. Like, there were just ministers who you knew about from the Liberal government who's like, her job is to bring home Skase.
100%. She's very funny in this. Yeah, and clearly quite vindictive.
Yeah.
and I don't want to give too much away of her stuff, but just she was more of a character than I was expecting. But yeah, no, I couldn't. I think I'd struggle to list most of, even though there are so few members of the Liberal Party now. I think it's actually harder to list them than it was when there were many of them.
Yeah, I mean I guess that's we're tangenting here, but that is a result of kind of the Prime Minister's office becoming more powerful than the cabinet, right? Even during COVID with Morrison, it was a one-man show.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's why all of his cabinet ministers lost their seats to independents, because we didn't know who they were.
And lost their cabinets to Scotty as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think that that kind of brand of Australian tycoon still exists in Australia? Like we were talking before, nowadays, and look, the tech guys, for forever, the only way to get rich in this country before Skase was to own a TV station or own 40 pubs or own a mine. Those are three things. That was before the property boom. It was before all this. You know, we're still very much an extractor economy, but now we've got these kind of guys that listened in school and have built massive tech platforms, and they're worth more money than Kerry Packer 10 times over, right?
Yeah.
Do we still have – I know Clive Palmer's alive.
Yes.
And he definitely has a bit of this Skase in him where it's just move. Let's just do it.
Yes.
Do we still have them? Do you see them in public life?
I don't feel – I mean, like, you know, obviously Reinhardt is her own sort of thing as well. I mean, I feel like she's spent so much of her time now tied up in that whole MAGA Trump thing. And then Palmer is sort of a watered down Australian version of that. But I don't really have much of a sense of the Cannon Brookses in terms of their personalities.
It seems to be harder to get away with this sort of stuff on scale, right? Like there's still characters like, mayors of different little parts of Sydney who pop up here and there, but it's not the same scale of buying sports franchises or media stations or anything like that.
It's
just not as cowboy anymore, I don't think.
No, I kind of feel like in America, I just think if you're Bezos's or what have you, like people, buying Washington Post or what have you, that sort of seems more in this vein. But I don't feel like we're not doing it the way we.
I feel like if someone had come through crypto, maybe that would have been the pathway.
Right.
If someone had some, like, who was the FX or whatever it was, that giant crypto exchange that collapsed and took everyone's money, Bankman-Fried or whatever. If we'd had an Australian in that somehow, maybe that could have been the way where there was just big splashes of cash for a short period of time.
I feel like Bell Gibson was the last great Australian fraud. I feel like that was sort of, that was the final cautionary tale of just like, this will really blow up in your face.
It's also like crime's changed a lot, right? There's paper trails and surveillance. But I also think we're now getting at a point where there's so much of that. There's so much technology that it's all overwhelming, and I don't think intelligence can keep up. Like, who would have thought? You talk to me a week ago and say, do you reckon someone could break into the Louvre and steal jewelry? Like,
fantastic.
It's just because no one's thinking about it.
Is it bad that I weirdly admired it? Like, don't do that. But like, well done.
And they kind of, they've done. They got away. So
look, it makes you think, what else could you do?
What else could you do? Because everyone thinks you can't do this because there's cameras everywhere and there's all this traceable stuff. But even watching one battle after another, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, these kind of revolutionary cells couldn't exist nowadays because the American government would be all over them. But I don't think they would be.
Who's really on top of things? Who's really paying attention?
And just that shooting in Utah the other day kind of taught us that too. Like, that kid could have got away.
I've somehow missed this story. I'm sorry.
Charlie Kirk, the assassin.
Sorry, when you said the other day. Sorry, I thought it was like this week.
Yeah.
Sorry,
the assassin. I mean, there's been 2 assassinations in America this year where it took the FBI a fortnight.
Yes.
How hard is it to go off grid?
Yeah, right.
And,
Luigi nearly got away.
Yeah, he did. Damn Macca's stuff. But yeah, it is exciting, and I do think we're going to see more of this. And I actually don't think the cowboy is done for.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Because we need more podcasts as well. So if you've got tips on anyone.
Who are you looking at? Who would you look at as another kind of...
Oh, I mean, look, I think they probably don't want to do another similar story. I mean, the interesting thing, like people always talk about Alan Bond as well.
Yeah.
And like one thing you do have to give Alan Bond credit for is he faced the music.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people hated Bond, but I think there's much more loathing out there for Skase because he just wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
Had a very bad condition.
And that's the thing. And I think also, yes, the theatrics of the wheelchair and the oxygen mask that may or may not have been attached to an oxygen tank. There's all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if Bond is as interesting. But there are other stories of that era. I don't want to say them in case I jinx them, but there's other stories of that era that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I think growing up in the 90s in Australia, there's just stuff that I'm curious about. That was stuff, it was in the background of our lives growing up. You're not really, switched on as a kid. It's now nice to kind of revisit those things and go, what was going on there?
Yeah, very localized news cycle too, right, back then. After 9/11 happened, all we ever heard about was what's going on in the world.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
And stuff could burn for such a period of time, right?
Yeah.
Like the chase for Skase went on for so long, whereas now it feels like something might just...
I mean, this is so niche and this is not worth doing a podcast on, so I'll just say it now. Like, do you remember the whole issue with like Solomon Hormono and the
I was just about to say Pleasure Machine.
The Pleasure Machine. Like these are
That's an incredible...
Isn't that an incredible...
It just kept going. And they had to send a young Anthony Mundine over there to kind of de-radicalize a love-struck Solomon.
That's it. It's a two-parter at best.
Yeah.
But I'd listen to that.
Yeah, Love Machine. He's come a long way from South Auckland. Now he's in a flat in London.
But just like, I remember just as a kid just going, oh, this must be important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Sonny Bill.
Yeah, Money Bill Williams, that saga, which wasn't in hindsight. Like, it was just... That was the moment where sport became professional in Australia, where a guy was like, hey, this team overseas is going to pay me heaps of money. I'm going to leave this suburban club. Yeah.
The podcast I want to pitch, but not really, because I think there's many reasons not to do it. But it is, and I talk about this all the time, and I love watching people suddenly remembering this. You probably have thought about it more. That weird period where Tony Abbott thought he had a son.
Yes.
Yeah. I
in opposition.
Yeah.
Like opposition leader.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's so forgotten. Partly because I think it's just a bit sad.
Yeah.
But it was just an extraordinary, I think it went for 2 months. Where it's just like, okay, Tony Abbott has a son.
And he's a cameraman.
And he's in the, exactly. He works at Parliament House.
Yeah.
There are shots where he's in there and Abbott's there and Abbott accepts him as his own. And it's like, wow, this is extraordinary.
There's a couple spooky stories like that happens in public life. I guess because politicians are often interesting people and not normal people. But I do think maybe Abbott got away with that. As a good Catholic man who was the heir apparent of the Liberal Party, I think the media, very conservative Australian media landscape at the time, just went, yeah, no, that's all good. It's not his son. Can we just focus on the election where he's...
It was DNA testing the DNA. Is that what they did? Yeah.
So some other guy watching TV going, hang on.
Yeah.
I dated that girl and that looks like me.
Yeah. Soul and valor from Tony Abbott.
That's it. Yeah. But just like, I actually feel for Tony where he would have come to some sort of acceptance of this is my son. Yeah. And then it's then taken away from you quite quickly. Yeah. So I think, it is quite a sad story. But no one talks about it.
That is an incredible moment in history. I mean, we also have obviously a lot of tragedies that don't add up in Australia. A lot of... We could talk about the Whiskey A Go-Go bombing in Brisbane. It's what the fuck happened? Sure. Does anyone care? Who did it?
Yes, right.
Probably shouldn't talk about that, I don't think.
Why? We get sued?
I don't know.
The ghost train. ABC got sued for the ghost train.
There's still a few people around, isn't there, involved in those sorts of things?
Yeah. Well, the ABC got sued for saying that Neville Rand did the ghost train, but this one has been a lot more fucking better researched, and Mark, you've steered them towards a lot of answers in the story of Christopher Scase. I learned so much, and I think a lot of people from that generation will love actually just connecting all the dots from start to finish. Because when you end up with this larger than life figure and so much scandal, it's kind of like, where does it start and where does it end? Yeah, and when did he cross over?
Yeah, and also just the power of image and just the things that we can sort of look at with hindsight. And I think we would say, oh, that looks ostentatious and, doesn't feel...
Bit Larry.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time was like, yeah, this guy's nailing it.
Yeah.
I want a piece of this. Take my superannuation.
Oh, yeah, it's so true. And crime, even white-collar crime was cooler back then. You know what I mean? Nowadays, it's just like NDIS rorts and for-profit childcare and
sure.
shit.
It's not, exactly. Where's the flashiness? Where's the panache?
Where's the dress getting put on a private jet from Melbourne to Port Douglas for the missus.
That's it. Absolutely perfect. Yeah.
It's a hell of a yarn you've told, and I think you've probably activated a lot of people out there too. Just back to this era,
And if you're a Skase truther, I'm happy to.
Yeah. Yeah, we also like to hear from some of you guys too, who think that he was just a rags to riches tale and he was brought down by good old-fashioned Australian tall poppy
Fucking tall poppy syndrome.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. He did manage to. There was great loyalty towards him. There were people who worked with him and who, still, despite it all, they believed in him. And
I wonder if he would have survived. I mean, there's the theory that if he came from the right family and had political or financial business pedigree, they might have looked the other way. There's also the argument that if he didn't dress like he was on Miami Vice, he might have gotten away with a bit more. But also, if he was actually a hometown boy, this might be what also fucked him, was that he left Melbourne and went to Queensland. And he was never from Queensland.
Yes.
Whereas Bondi, they'll always love him in WA.
Right.
You know what I mean? And all of those cowboy white shoe brigade in Queensland, everyone will tell you, well, they got things done, mate. Whereas Skase kind of hedged his bets and didn't really have a base.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until ultimately, I mean, this is a slight tangent to that, but just what became his ultimate base.
Yeah.
It was a tragic existence. As much as people were like, oh, he's living it up in Spain, it's like it was probably shit.
Yeah.
It was probably, yes, it was a lavish lifestyle, but he was so cut off from everyone and living in constant fear of being deported. It was like I genuinely think if he just faced the music, he could have lived another 20 years.
Yeah.
I think he was.
Would he have got much in the way of jail time, or would it have been like a slap on the wrist kind of thing?
That's a great question. I mean, it would have been a period, but nothing crazy. Probably would have been a few years. I mean, how long was Bond away for?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It was a few years, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't a crazy period.
He was still able to come out and rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those listening at home, you do need to tune in here and just hear the story of, I guess, this AWOL Australian tycoon and the chase that followed him. Andrew Denton as well nearly got himself in a lot of trouble too, by the sounds of things.
It's I don't want to say too much about it. No, I think we should just say, he wanted to hire a bounty hunter. I mean, that's like, it's fucked.
It's a serious rush of blood.
And just like, it was one of those ideas that it wasn't until someone said, oh, that's illegal. Oh, that's a shame. But people, because Denton had a talk show at the time, and members of the public contributed money en masse towards this idea.
And that was the thing in the world, right, at the time, where you could just, I mean, it was probably obviously inspired by a lot of those Nazi hunters heading to Argentina and bringing people back. But sure, why not? It's the 80s. Send someone
they could have got cameras on it. It would have been so fucking good.
Oh, man.
Just filming the kidnapping him and getting him on a plane and bringing him back.
Totally.
This would have been very, very good stuff. Yeah. Illegal, yes. Anyway, we have to bounce.
Thank you for joining us. Mark, that was incredible yarn, and there's plenty more of it. How many episodes?
5 episodes on ABC Listen and all the podcast apps.
Beautiful.
Bonus episode coming.
I'd like to think so.
The truther episode.
I reckon if people have more stories about Skase, because they are coming in.
Yeah.
And there was so much more we couldn't cover.
And we'll keep an eye out for the 2-parter on Tony Abbott's son.
and Pleasure Machine.
That's right. Thanks, Mark.
Cheers, guys.